Have you ever seen an invisible person? This heroine is not only invisible, but also loves to fight injustice, and specializes in bullying bandits and local bullies. Who is this heroine? And where does her invisibility come from? The story begins with an old man fishing by the river. When he sees the water bubbling and churning, it's obvious that a fish is hooked, and a big one at that. The old man puts all his strength into it, but still falls flat on his face. As soon as he gets up, he sees a row of footprints walking on the shore out of thin air, which scares the old man so much that he learns sign language, pointing at the ground and making gestures. In the air, a silk underwear actually puts itself on, and then you see a piece of clothing walking past people as if nothing had happened. It looks like a person but has no limbs or head, and the people next to it are all stunned. As the invisible person leaves, he greets the old man, scaring the two of them into each other's arms. On the road, the invisible person encounters a wedding procession, the leader of which rides his horse recklessly, bullying the people, very arrogant and domineering. The invisible person decides to teach them a lesson. She rings the gong and smashes the swana. Could it be a ghost in broad daylight? The crowd flees in terror. Even the bride's phoenix crown becomes a toy in her hands. After a lot of commotion, the invisible person gallops away on horseback. On the groom's side, his father, Lord Chun, is anxiously waiting for the wedding procession when a servant reports that the bridal sedan chair has met a ghost and has been carried back to the Jiangnan headquarters. Gale, the leader of the headquarters, is furious when he finds out. He is the leader of the Jiangnan underworld, and someone dares to provoke him. The bride is also crying and feeling aggrieved. After listening to the housekeeper Huey tell the story, Gale doesn't believe in ghosts. He summons his men, the three wolves of Huangshan, and vows to find the invisible person and get even. As soon as they arrive in town, Huey starts to misbehave. While they are drinking at the tavern, the invisible person also comes here. As soon as she sits down, she is teased by several people, who say that she must be extremely ugly since she covers her face. Someone even tries to lift her bamboo hat and gets kicked away. The two sides start fighting, and after a few rounds, the famous three wolves of Huangshan are defeated, and Huey is pinned to the table. Then the invisible person takes off her veil and bamboo hat, and in front of them is a headless person. The men are so scared that they run away with their heads in their hands, and Huey faints on the spot. Gale, the leader of the rudder, receives the news and rushes over. He stops her in an open space in the suburbs. Gale orders his men to take her back, but they hesitate to make a move. Seeing this, Gale takes the lead and everyone rushes forward. Seeing his men fall to the ground one by one, Gale steps forward and picks off her bamboo hat. The invisible person sees that the other side is outnumbered, so she uses her ultimate move. She takes off her clothes one by one and becomes invisible. The advantage of being invisible is obvious, and in no time at all, a swathe of enemies are down. After all the villains are beaten away, the clothes on the ground move. They are folded neatly and brought to an inn. The innkeeper is so scared that he rolls and crawls, shouting that there is a ghost. The guests eating in the restaurant see this and all get up and run away. Some even kneel down and kowtow. One guest looks up and sees 2 feet walking on the ground. She then goes to the guest room in the backyard, gets dressed, and her head and limbs gradually appear. It is actually a girl with a delicate face. The girl's name is Pearl. She remembers being bullied by so many people and is furious, so she is going to get even with them. Pearl sneaks into Gale's house at night, and after knocking out a guard, Pearl runs into Huey the housekeeper. She tells Huey that she is the headless one, which scares Huey into calling for his mother. This attracts the attention of the young lady of the house, and the two fight. The young lady is taught a lesson by Pearl. It doesn't take long for Gale to arrive with his men. Pearl makes a face at him, not taking him seriously at all. At this point, Pearl has had enough. She grabs a handful of mud and throws it down, taking the opportunity to turn over and leave gracefully, to be humiliated by a little girl, even though he is a mob boss. Gale has never been so humiliated before, but he is at a loss for what to do against the skilled and invisible Pearl. Someone suggests that to subdue Pearl, they have to go to the Twin Elders. The Twin Elders are named Imperfect and Void. Imperfect, although blind, has excellent hearing. Void is disabled in both legs and has spent 10 years cultivating his internal energy to move objects. His hidden weapon, the centipede ring, is even more vicious and deadly. They are eccentric and bad-tempered. Gale brings them the 7 treasures beads as a gift and explains his purpose. When they hear that they are dealing with an invisible girl, the two can't help but change their expressions. It turns out that more than 10 years ago, they went to the mountains to steal the invisibility grass and were stopped by a little girl. Just as they were about to take it by force, the girl's grandmother, the Dove Witch, appeared. Her martial arts skills were unfathomable, and she didn't waste time talking to them. She just started fighting. Within a few rounds, the Dove Witch used her ultimate move. Both were seriously injured, their legs were cut off, and their eyes were blinded. From then on, the two of them hid in the mountains and practiced their martial arts, waiting for the chance to take revenge. Now that I think about it, the invisible girl should be the witch's granddaughter. The two of them then challenged Pearl to a duel, 10 days later at the Jianan headquarters. Pearl arrives as promised, and after learning that Pearl's grandmother is dead, they decide to get even with Pearl. After knocking off Pearl's bamboo hat, they discover that she can indeed become invisible. Pearl also realizes that the two are not easy to deal with, so she takes off her clothes and disappears again. Imperfect uses his hearing to his advantage, locating her by the sound, and directs the ground to shoot out the hidden weapon, the centipede ring. The centipede ring is coated with a deadly poison, and there is no antidote. Death is certain within an hour. Pearl escapes injured to a cave, where she is rescued by a passing healer, and soon recovers. The healer is very attentive to Pearl, and after spending all day and night together, the two develop feelings for each other. A few days later, the two go down the mountain together, only to be bumped into by Huey the housekeeper, and the healer is captured. Pearl goes to Gale's mansion to inquire about the situation, only to discover that Gale's daughter is having an affair with one of his men. Pearl devises a plan to bring the parents of both sides together. It turns out that in order to win over the 3 wolves, Gale used his own daughter as a honey trap. Seeing his scandal exposed, Gale flies into a rage and orders the 3 wolves to be killed. Gale's mansion is thrown into chaos, and in a frenzy, he turns his butcher's knife on Lord Chen, clearly intending to silence him. Pearl takes advantage of the chaos to rescue the healer. As their feelings for each other grow, Pearl reveals the reason for her invisibility. Just 6 months ago, after 30 years of painstaking research, Pearl's grandmother finally perfected the invisibility potion. She first experimented on monkeys, and then forced Pearl to drink the invisibility potion, and to her surprise, it worked. Her grandmother died suddenly from excitement and accidentally knocked over the antidote. Only a little of the antidote remained, and it was not strong enough. So from then on, Pearl could only be invisible during the day and appear at night, living a half-human, half-ghost existence. The healer promises to develop an antidote for her. Meanwhile, Gale shows up again with the Twin Elders. Lord Shun also arrives with his men to help, and the two sides clash. Facing the Twin Elders again, Pearl knows that she is no match for them, and in order to protect her lover who does not know martial arts, she undresses and disappears again to sneak attack them. The healer tells her to take out Imperfect first, and, taking advantage of his ability to locate people by sound, makes noises to distract Imperfect, and throws out a knife sheath to distract him. Finally, Imperfect is stabbed to death by Pearl with a sword. Seeing his brother dead, Void throws out the centipede ring, trying to sneak attack the healer, but is knocked to the ground by Pearl. Void throws out several more centipede rings, but misses every time. The two sides fight from day to night, and Pearl's invisibility can no longer be sustained. Seeing Pearl's true form, Void knows his chance has come. He gathers his strength and forces his way towards the group, and in the chaos, Gale is also killed by Pearl's sword. At this critical moment, the healer whispers in Pearl's ear, telling her to use her grandmother's ultimate move, the Phoenix Double Turn, to break the ground residual's Qigong, before the other side can react. Pearl unleashes her ultimate move. The next second, Void is struck and eventually dies at Pearl's hand. A little girl single-handedly eradicated the evil forces in the martial arts world and brought together a loving couple. After the young couple gets married, Pearl mischievously takes the bride's phoenix crown. Pearl and the healer retreat to the mountains and live their own lives. As for when the antidote will be made, it doesn't seem so important anymore. And that's the end of the story. The movie, The Invisible Woman, was released in 1971 and produced by Shaw Brothers Studio. It is a martial arts drama film. The story revolves around a heroine who can turn invisible with a bold and novel theme, especially the invisibility sequences. As an old movie, it brings us a different viewing experience. So if you had the power of invisibility, what would you most want to do? Feel free to leave a comment in the comments section and let's discuss. This is Kung Fu Film Recaps from YouTube. Until next time,